Hey, Dad Squad, and welcome to the Run with My Son show, where we're a bunch of dads who are determined to not let the headwinds of life push us off the path to a heart-to-heart, lifelong relationship with our sons. And we do that through something we call Runversations. So this week, the topic of the Runversation you might be looking to have with your son is an appropriate one, an evergreen one, good and useful year-round, and that is praise. Looking for times when you can give some praise to your son, your young ones, for the great things that you've observed, you've seen them doing. But here's something that you might not be thinking, and that is this appropriate or inappropriate praise? Believe it or not, there is such a thing as inappropriate praise, and that's the topic we want to talk a little bit about today. Are you doing it the wrong way? So, let me start off with what's likely to be your shock. I mean, you're always telling us, Gideon, we should be giving more praise. Everything I have ever read has said we need to be giving more praise, using positive feedback. And that's usually good advice. We really want to encourage, we want to give courage, we want to give our children inspiration to repeat and go further and to do these great things that we're seeing them do again and even more. But there's a couple of mistakes, a couple of things that you might be doing wrong that will actually, if not done carefully, actually have the opposite effect. It can actually hinder instead of help. And a perfect example of that is simply your timing. There is, Dad Squad, both a good time and a bad time to give praise. And you really only have to look and think as far as your own life. When would be a bad time for you to receive praise? Well, typically, it's probably right when you're in the middle of doing something. So put yourself in these shoes. If you're standing outside at the grill, cooking up burgers and dogs and chicken and ribs for the family, 4th of July barbecue, and somebody walks up, your brother-in-law walks up, stands over your shoulder, and he's dumping all this praise on you, and you're trying to concentrate, trying to work. He's saying, "Oh, hey, I love the way you chopped up those onions. That's a perfectly sliced tomato I see there. Yes, that's precise patty placement you've got there on the grill. I like how you work it just this way." How are you going to feel, dads, when a barrage of that comes your way over the slightest, probably a little bit agitated, right? Well, it's the same thing with our kids. When they're in the middle of trying to achieve something, of trying to explore something, of trying to impress mom and dad, sometimes that's not the right time to throw some praise, especially if it's not focused, if it's a general, "You're the best, oh, you're so smart, you're so great," kind of, I don't want to say empty praise, but unfocused kind of praise. I'll tell you a story. This is a true one that you've probably experienced the same thing. I was at my son's preschool class, picking him up, and just walking around the room, observing the whole crowd of them, having their fun and playing. And there was this little boy who was at the water table, carefully and precisely balancing these little toys. It was an assortment of blocks and dinosaur toys, and he had stacked them up in this impossible Rube Goldberg tower. I don't know how the thing was standing, but I made the mistake of choosing that moment to praise him and say, "Wow, Jack, this boy's pretty good at this. He's got it all stacked up," and I've forgotten exactly what the words were, but I spooked him. He heard this, as I, kind of came up behind him, and that was it. He dumped the blocks down, stood up, walked away across the room, and picked up on another activity. So there was an opportunity for me to observe at a distance and maybe praise afterward on the next opportunity I got to talk to this little boy. But instead, because I said it at the time that I did, I put pressure on him and made him feel like he was, in a bubble being observed. And we can do that to our own sons if we're not careful, and have the reverse effect of what we desire. In fact, we're scaring him off by choosing the wrong timing. The right timing can immediately follow. Or an even easier rule of thumb, when's the best time that I can give my praise? Well, when's the best moment that you yourself would want to receive praise? It's when he runs up to you, all excited, glowing, "Daddy, Daddy, look what I made." That is the time when he's seeking it, when he's open to it, and when it's top of forefront in his mind. That is when you give it to him. Now, let's talk a little bit about what the praise itself, what sort of form it takes, because there is not just timing that you got to worry about, but there's also the way you're saying it. And again, I'm going to take you right back to putting yourself in comfortable, familiar shoes, your own. Let's imagine that you're at work, dads, and you've been laboring, agonizing weeks and weeks over this new proposal or presentation that you've been preparing for the boss. And you've done all kinds of research, and you've burned all kinds of midnight oil and skipped lunches so that you could work straight through this thing, and you've finally polished it down. You've refined your refinements, and it's all set, and you finally send it off to your boss. You send the TPS report off to your boss, and you're eagerly anticipating what he's going to say. You send it off, noon, midday on Friday. Well, his response finally comes at 4:37 p.m. on Friday, and his response, all this feedback you've been, eager to hear, what he thinks, consists of 3 words. Great job. Thanks. Now let me ask you, dads, what are you thinking about that praise? Does that feel like it matches the topic, or does it feel perhaps like this guy, your boss, is just checking off something on his to-do list? I gotta clear through my email before the weekend begins, because that's what it might be. There's no way of knowing. You can't see from an email what someone's thought process is. But, he makes no mention in this email of, my groundbreaking thoughts, or, all the latest research I was able to pull in, the way I was able to figure out this impossibly intractable problem that has stumped, quarter after quarter. We haven't been able to figure this out. I figured it out. I've got it for you in the report. He doesn't mention any of that. He just puts 3 words in there. Well, it's the same thing, dads, when we give our sons faint praise like, "Excellent, I love it, great job, that's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen." Those are hang-ups. When you give that sort of praise, you're not showing your appreciation and your attention. A better type of praise and feedback you can give is by following this one simple toolbox rule that might seem counterintuitive, and it might not even seem like praise, but believe me, just by describing what you see, you will connect so much closer to your son than you would with however many superlatives you can string together. Wow, Junior, I noticed that you did a lot of zigzaggy green lines. I love the way you circled all of the red objects. Just describing what you see in front of you shows him that you're observing and that you're into it. And it will often prompt the storytelling. This is another one that I've experienced, and you probably have too. Just by saying, "Oh, wow, I see how all your little zigzaggy green lines stay on the page." "Oh, yeah, Daddy, actually that's..." And then a 10-minute story ensues about a puppy dog and a rocket ship and who knows what else. I mean, I don't know what connection that has with green lines, but that sort of thing happens all the time simply by showing an interest and observing something. And that's the kind of praise that that we seek when we do something, when we want to be acknowledged for our achievements. We want people to see exactly what it is we've done in its fine detail. Here's another great one. Your son cleans up his room, and you can tell him, "Excellent job, proud of you." And that's not bad praise, that's good, but there's also better, and there's best praise as well. You can say something like, "Wow, I noticed you picked up all the socks, and all your books are on the shelf, and there's no more cars over there in the corner. I can see the bare floor. Nice job." When you list all those things, when you take it from being a simple superlative, "Great job," to Daddy's seeing the actual steps that you did to achieve this, that kind of praise is going to go so much farther. And it's going to encourage him to do it again, because, we all want that. We all desire that, and so does he. He's going to try to please you some more on the next dirty floor occasion. And you can take that to the bank. So let me tell you one more story that comes to mind. And it's another one of those good, better, best sort of thoughts. And I'll open it with a question, which I'll welcome you if you're here on Facebook or watching the replay over on YouTube. You can use the comments to list an example of this. Can you think of a time when you gave praise and actually found that immediately following that, it had the opposite effect? Instead of encouraging him to do more of something, it made him feel worse. I'll give you one of those myself in a moment here, but I'm going to, for the third time, I think, put us back into our own shoes of what it feels like as an adult to catch this wrong sort of praise. And for that one, just think about when you are hearing praise, that what sort of questions of doubt go in your mind. That example from earlier of your boss's response to your email. What sort of questions does it prompt in your mind? Like, is this something that he really means? Is he being sincere? But what if it's legitimate? I mean, here's an example of let's pretend that you're a golfer and you only golf maybe 2 or 3 times a year. You're no pro. All right, I'm being a little bit polite. You're actually pretty lousy. And let's take it even further. Let's say that you're an actual menace to public safety when you're out there golfing. But you know what? Even the worst of us have our lucky moments. And one of those rare lightning strike moments happens. You happen to be taking a swing on the driving range, and just all the stars align, and the breeze is blowing just the right way, and who knows what other little conspiracies of nature all work together in this one moment that you had the perfect swing, and it connects. And wouldn't you know it, unseen to you, somebody happens to be walking up, observing at just that moment, and sees that. And that's all they've seen of your golf game, that perfect swing. And they give you some praise. Wow, you're amazing! And then they keep walking on their way. Now, what's going through your head when you hear that? You're thinking, well, thanks, but you don't actually know how unamazing I truly am. And when we tell our kids that, there's the potential for some doubt in their minds. Well, Daddy, he tells me that it was great. You should have seen the one I made 10 minutes ago. That one was great. But he's thinking in his mind, if you drop, unleavened praise across the board, unspecific praise, in all these different opportunities, it kind of flattens things down. The things that he truly made an effort on, and the things that he, doesn't feel like he made a big effort on, instead of being, at relative spaces, your praise sort of levels it all. And it makes him doubt, wow, does Dad really mean that? Or does he just say that every time I give it a try? Because when I was riding my bike a few minutes ago, I actually made it twice this far across the yard before I toppled over and had to reset. For the son who's learning how to ride without the training wheels. In his mind is the doubt that, wow, I got it right this one time, but is it repeatable? Can I do it again? And that puts some pressure on there. So keep in mind that when you're giving praise, what you really want to be praising is not the result, but the effort. And a favorite one of mine is at the soccer game. Because soccer, being a zero-sum game, one team gets a point that's bad for the other team. That team loses or gets a point that's bad for the first team, and so there's the danger, and this one's real. I'll confess to you here, dads, that it's something that I struggle with. My sons, they have emotional ups and downs, and it's connected to how their team does. How well did we perform? Did we win? And it's not so much about his individual performance. Did I score any goals? Did I assist anybody? Did I block anything? It's strictly, a numbers thing. And we have sort of mathematical, numerical way of thinking, and that carries over into sports. And I have to work harder at encouraging not the result. Did your team win? Did you score any goals? But how his effort was. And it starts with praising not when the game is over and not when the results are tallied, but even in those moments when we're off having a runversation and the game hasn't even happened yet. Saturday's game is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and we're out running at 8:30 in the morning, anticipating the game hours from now, saying some kind words to him along the lines of, wow, I really love watching you play soccer. It's so much fun watching you play. Just saying words like that is really what's going to open up his heart to you. Letting him know, wow, I can tell you worked really hard. You kept running, and I knew you were tired, but I love the way you kept running, even in that second quarter of the game when you hadn't gotten a substitution because your team was short players today or something like that. Pointing out how he pushed through difficulties is the culmination of all these pieces of advice that I've been learning and I've been sharing here today. It's choosing the right moment instead of the wrong moment. It's being specific instead of just saying something general. It's describing your observations. And it's not results focused, but it's effort focused. Dads, when you use that formula, you put those things together, you'll find that the same amount of praise that you put out, even if you're not doing anything different than you used to do as far as quantity, but the quality of your praise, just by being focused, timed, and specific, and geared towards his effort and not the result, you put that same amount of effort into the right kind of praise, and you're going to find that the results are astoundingly better than when you just give random, scattering of unspecific praise. So dads, go for it today. Find something that your son, that your child has done that he might not even be expecting some praise for, but surprise him by getting in there and giving some of that specific observational praise. And if you're looking for opportunities for something you can go out and do together to give you something to praise, then let me suggest a habit formed together of running. You can go to runwithmyson.com and download your free Couch to 5K training plan so that any ages 4, 5, 6, 7 and on up, and any fitness level, even from 0, can get on the ground and get those feet out there in the grass. And this will give you the specifics, the breakdown of how many minutes to run, how many minutes to rest, how far to go, which days of the week. And it will lead you up through a series that builds endurance and strength so that by the end of 7 to 9 weeks, it all depends on the age here, but within weeks, anyone will be ready to run in a 5K race, about 30 minutes of sustained running. And if that seems like an impossibility to you, then let me give you some encouragement, dads, because it seemed like an impossibility to me as well. There was a time when even the prospect, the thought of going out and running made me a little bit nauseous. I remember that first day, that first mile, it literally made me nauseous. But I stuck through it, and I continued to go to my after-school running club practices because of the encouragement I received from my parents and how I wanted to make them proud, even though I pushed through what was at the time a hated experience. But that encouragement carried me through. And today, many years later, running is a passion. It's a love. It's something that I do whenever I have that free and open opportunity. And I hope that it becomes a passion in both your life, your son's life, because it's such a great vehicle for you to bond and get close together and have those key runversations like this one, where you give some praise. Next week, we got a great topic. We're going to take that runversation into those places that are just a little bit scary. There's some dark things going around the world around us, and if you turn on the news, they're going to talk about some stuff that might not be easy for little ears to hear. But nonetheless, we want to address this stuff with our kids. And so next week, the topic of our show is addressing those difficult to broach topics in the news around us, and how to do it in an appropriate way that will comfort and not frighten our young ones, and strengthen and give them what they need to face this world someday, as well as grown-ups. All right, well, dads, I really appreciate, and I love the sincerity that you got, that you're eager to build that relationship with your son, and I look forward to seeing you here. We're here each and every Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, or you can go binge watch all the back episodes over on YouTube, and of course find us at the website runwithmyson.com. All right, Dad Squad, have a great week.